Now this article that came about to be, and it says, who are Canada's top earning CEOs and how much do they make? CTV News wants to ask. Ironically, not including their own CEOs in this mix because Bell Media has already have enough troubles as is, and I got to give them some slack. I got to give them some sympathy because, it's been a hard year for Bell, considering they embezzled a bunch of money from the government. They cover up for Justin Trudeau shenanigans with that money and then took that money to splurge on their CEO bonuses, cutting away from the general work of people at Bell Media like CTV News. So, ironically, they wouldn't include this, but, give them credit because they lost the Discovery Channel. So, the article says Canada's 100 highest paid CEOs earned $13.2 billion on average in 2023 from salaries and bonuses and other compensation, according to the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. It was the third biggest year for CEO pay since the CCPA began tracking the data in 2007, but a decline after 2021 and 2022 broke records. It's still well up from where it stood historically, said David McDonald, report author and senior economist at the CCPA. Factors leading to the decline include lower profits in 2023 and workers making wage gains after the most recent bout of inflation, he said. The CCPA calculates that by 10:54 a.m. on January 2nd, the average CEO on the list made $62,661, the average annual income for a Canadian worker. The gap between CEOs and regular workers have grown significantly, the report found. The top 100 paid CEOs earned on average 210 times more than the average worker did in 2023, while in 1998 they earned 104 times more. The highest paid Canadian CEO in 2023 was Patrick Dovigi of GFL Environmental Incorporated, whose total compensation was $68.5 million. He was also followed by Joshua Kobza of Restaurant Brands International Incorporated at $39.1 million. And that is the parent company of Tim Hortons. So if you're wondering why your coffee has tasted a bit stale or why you can't find anyone to toast a bagel properly to save their life, you know where to turn. Then M.R. Kruger of Suncor Energy Inc. at $36.8 million. Salaries were generally not the main source of CEOs' total compensation, with most of it coming instead from other forms of compensation like shared-based awards and option-based rewards. Salaries make up an even smaller portion of other compensation, said McDonald, adding that sometimes an executive will even take a salary of just $1, including Toby Luke of Shopify and Murray Edwards of Canadian Natural Resources Limited, both on 2023's list. The average cash bonus for these CEOs was $2.3 million in 2023, the CCPA said, adding that though in theory bonuses are meant to be tied to the company's performance, in reality bonuses tend to rise regardless of whether the company is having a good year. Surprisingly, one such change happened in 2024 when the inclusion rate for taxing capital gains was increased more than 66% compared to with 100% for employment income for gains above $250,000 for individuals, though this, of course, did not affect CEOs in 2023. However, capital gains did not apply until stocks were actually sold, noted McDonald's, meaning that the tax revenue from the change is potential. Some people might hold on to these stocks in the hopes the policy will change in the future. Another such change happened in 2021 when the federal government capped the stock option tax deduction at $200,000 a year. We are seeing the impact on CEO pay from that change, said McDonald. Stock options as a means of being paid have been cut in half for CEOs since 2021. In the real world, it's a much more mundane explanation, McDonald said. He said, in fact, more than 3/4 of CEOs on the list got the job from within the company, working at their firms for an average of 21 years. This really reveals the bankruptcy of this idea that these insane pay levels are about competition, said McDonald. The report recommends a wealth tax on Canadians worth more than $10 million, which it says it could raise $32 billion a year. This is a much more direct approach than addressing stock options or capital gains, said McDonald. The report also recommends higher top marginal tax brackets. Historically speaking, Canada's marginal tax rate for the richest is low, the report said, with the top brackets within the 70% range in the post-war years, compared to roughly 50% what it is now. And that goes back to even people like Dwight D. Eisenhower in the United States, who implemented this kind of progressive tax rate that, the top 1% earners paid 90% of the taxes back then, and it was considered the age of the golden economic era. That was when the boom of, manufacturing and factories and the, families with the parent that went to work and maybe had the stay-at-home mom and both the kids went off to college, those days back in the 50s. That was kind of what implemented that, was being able to have this kind of marginalized tax rate, this progressive tax rate that implemented a lot in the 50s, but nowadays it's just an absolute mess. So, speaking of compensation for businesses that are in the tank, I wanted to show this. So, this is involving Canada Post, because Canada Post, their top CEOs got a huge settlement while the workers struggled, while the workers are working paycheck to paycheck, which is why the strike got implemented. And considering the fact that Canada Post in the business side of things is crumbling to its deathbed, it's just amazing that their top CEOs still get these bonuses for killing the brand. And as this guy points out, CTV News anchor Vashi Capellos absolutely body bags Canada Post corporate spokesperson John Hamilton, though tough showing for cooperation here. Fun fact, Canada Post has lost 35% of its businesses and paid the CEO, Doug Ettinger, $450,000 plus bonuses last year. So almost $500,000 for a failing company. $500,000 for a failing company that the workers went on strike just to get a decent wage. It's insane how this is structured. How unbelievably messed up and corrupted the structure is for this. So here is some of the segment on CTV's, I think this is Power Play show.
Hamilton, Canada Post spokesperson, is sitting right next to me live now, and so we're going to ask him about how this is going. Hi, Mr. Hamilton. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Vashi.
So it sounded like from Mr. Gallant that there's still a lot to work out. In your assessment, how likely is it that there is some sort of stoppage on Friday?
Well, the unions provided us their 72-hour notice. So as of Friday, they have the ability to do a full national strike or rotating. If it's rotating, we're going to continue to operate and provide the service that we provide to Canadians. It will be challenged, but we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to be at the table. We're at the table today. We intend on being at the table tomorrow. So hopefully we can get an agreement. But I think, Capdevieux has said, and he's a negotiator, I'm not, but there is a big gap at the table right now. And, we have some time to close it. Hopefully we.
So just to point out, too, as it stands, Canada Post Union, the company that oversees Canada Post, and the workers are completely out of communication. The workers are getting shunned out. The union doesn't want to talk to the company. The company doesn't want to talk to the unions. And as of this moment, the only reason that Canada Post is even operating today is the fact that the Canadian government went in and said, okay, guys, you're at a stalemate. Get back to work. That's literally the only reason. So none of this ever got fixed. Canada Post is still continuing to turn itself into its deathbed, spiral out of control. And this guy is the corporate spokesperson to represent the CEO who got $500,000. $500,000 to a failing brand. So here's the rest
we
of
can
it.
Get there, but the reality is it's been a year of productive conversations and good discussions about the future of the business. We just haven't been able to agree on what the future of Canada Post looks like.
And just very quickly, because Mr. Glant also pointed out that your company has issued a lockout notice. So let's say they decide not to go on strike on Friday, not because there's a deal, but because they think there might still be one on the table. Are you locking out Canada Post workers as of Friday?
No, the mechanism under the Canada Labour Code for us to change, make some changes to our operations because of the impact of a strike, the only way you can do that is if you provide a notice of lockout. That's the wording, but doesn't mean we're going to lock out, and that's not our intention. We want to continue to provide the service, but as of Friday, we have to look at our business right now. This is the holidays. Usually we're doing interviews about how busy we are and millions of parcels. Well, our parcel volume since the union put out their strike mandate and announced it have been declining every week. Last week alone, we were down 28%. That's 1.3 million parcels that instead of coming to Canada Post went to the competitors. So we're taking a huge hit. It's only going to get worse now that 72 hours notice is out there. So we're going to have to make some changes to our operations, but we're going to continue to provide that service, not just to the people in urban centers, but the farther you get away from the urban centers, the more important that service is, and small businesses too that don't have the options and can't sign on with a major carrier.
So let's talk about.
So wouldn't it make the most sense then to challenge your CEO instead of paying them $500,000 to a failing dynasty, to actually challenge the CEO to actually make it better and make it a feasible opportunity for both the workers and the consumers? We're talking about the post office, for God's sakes. Like, it's amazing. It's literally amazing. And this has been going on time after time. Many CEOs that take the opportunity to be the head of Canada Post, they make it worse. They make it worse for this operation, and they're doing it to themselves, and yet they get the benefit of a $500,000 payout. So they don't care if Canada Post, crumbles. You know who does? The workers. That's why they went on strike. That's why they made that noise. That's why they canceled your mail, to get everybody angered enough that their CEO, that the people running Canada Post are deliberately destroying this brand, destroying this identity.
Then what is preventing that from going full force moving forward? Because Mr. Gallant was very specific in raising the specter that, yes, your company is losing money, but he faults bad management versus your workers, your employees. I would put to you, does he have a fair point? Are you essentially trying to, address the issues at your company on the backs of workers rather than, at the management level?
No, I don't think that's fair. First, on the investments, we are so far behind. Some of our technical systems are in the dark ages. We had a plant in Gateway, which was our main parcel processing facility. It was over capacity for years. So we built the new Albert Jackson Processing Center, and everyone was proud and super excited about that. So yeah, we've been trying to invest in the business to try and keep up, because we used to have 62% of the parcel business in Canada, but our competitors caught up. And after COVID, everybody was online shopping, and now everybody has the habit. There's growth there to be had, so all the competitors have swarmed in, and they're providing weekend delivery service. If you're sitting at home and ordering things on a Friday, chances are it's showing up the next day on Saturday or Sunday, but it's not coming from us because we can't afford to provide that level of service.
So what is the problem? I'm trying to ascertain for Canadians,
So again, doesn't that sound like a mismanagement problem rather than the workers? Because what it sounds like is that we're not managing enough to make it more feasible to get accessibility, so we can get workers out there to deliver packages quicker enough than Amazon or Purolator or FedEx or UPS. Again, you're saying it like it's the workers' fault, but really it comes back to mismanagement. It comes back to the fact that the CEO is taking these cash bribes to destroy Canada Post, which is pretty much the intention of what the competition wants. They want Canada Post to go under. They want Canada Post to be privatized. They want the workers to screw off and get temporary workers. That is the whole intention of all this. But here is Vassy Kappelos actually making the point and saying that, well, it doesn't sound like the workers are the problem. It sounds like you don't have a good enough organization. It's the management quality. It's the fact that your CEO doesn't give a damn. That's the fact your CEO is getting $500,000 of a payout, whether he does a good job or not.
Why are you guys so far apart? Is it that you don't want to pay them 23% over 4 years, or is it that you want 7-day delivery and they don't want it?
No, I think we all want 7-day delivery. It's how we get there. And we've got to do it in a way that provides greater flexibility and in a way that we can provide cheaper rates, because nobody wants to pay for shipping. So it has to be affordable. So how we do that with part-time, others? That needs to be worked out at the table. But we can't add inflexibility and we can't add more cost, because then we can't compete. Like, we do weekend deliveries during the holidays just for the volumes, but we do that at a significant cost on overtime. So that's how we're able to provide.
So you want to off-shift workers? Is that
in
layman's terms? Like, you want to be able to not pay them overtime?
No, there would be new good positions, but we need to figure out how we do that. Is it part-time people? Is it people that can work towards being full-time? We're working through all that at the table, but it can't be in a way where we're just adding costs and inflexibility. So when there's nothing to deliver on some days, we don't have a whole bunch of people sitting there doing nothing.
They seem to, Mr. Gallant seemed to characterize it's not just that there's like these substantive issues where you're apart. It's also the manner in which this is being negotiated. He says they're putting stuff on the table, and your company is kind of outright rejecting it and not giving it time. Is that fair?
No, I don't think that's fair. I know our negotiators, they're good people, and there have been productive discussions, and I don't think that's a fair representation of the work that's been going on at the table. Just because we're not in an agreement doesn't mean we're not getting along and having good conversations. But the reality is we need to look to the future. We need to bring flexibility to our model. But what we've also said is if we can get that, then we can grow our parcel business. That's where the only growth in the delivery business is. If we can grab more of that, then we can afford not change anything for current employees. So your defined benefit pension plan, not going to touch that. Your stringent job security provisions, that means you have job security and within 40 kilometers of where you work today. You're not going to find that in any other collective agreement. We're not changing any of that. So current employees aren't losing, they're gaining, and we're saying, we'll protect the things that matter most to you. Is where
11% wages, though, where you're topping out? And to be fair, inflation has gone up 25% over the last 5 years.
It has, but we've also lost $3 billion over the last 5 years.
And I put that to Mr. Gallant, but he raises a fair point as well, right? Like, again, are you supposed to balance your books on the backs of these workers?
But there are also, and there have been for years, cost of living allowances within our collective agreement. So we are.
So this is amazing to find a corporate journalist willing to have this much backbone. Like, this is incredible to see Vassy Kappelos, CTV, to actually stand on the side of understanding that what he's saying here, all this is directed towards management. None of this has anything to do. It's not the workers' fault that they're losing money, that this company is purposely going broke, and the top CEO, Brian Ettinger, is getting $500,000 payout. It's not the workers' fault for doing that. It's the management. It's you. It's Brian Ettinger. It's the people in charge of Canada Post that are not putting the incentives forward to making that company beneficial for the workers, beneficial for the customers, and making it more flexible for people. They're the ones that are not communicating. They're the ones that are refusing to negotiate. And that's why it took the government of Canada to step in and say, hey, you guys, you got to get back to work because we got too many people complaining. Nothing's being passed. Nothing's being implemented. So something's got to give. And let it be known that while the workers were striking just a few weeks ago, while the workers were striking, there were still volunteers going out to deliver mail at certain parts because they understood that a lot of seniors, a lot of elderly, a lot of people that still rely on their mail service were getting cut out of the mix. So they kept giving mail to those people voluntarily. But they still want to blame the workers for the losses created by management that are so disillusioned, that are so disorganized, and yet they still get a almost $500,000 payout. whether the company goes under or not. And it's just amazing that, literally, to hear this on corporate media tier of all places. And it just seems like they don't care. They don't care if Canada Post goes under. It's more beneficial for the competition. So, them going on to CTV and going, boo-hoo, we don't know what to do. We need to make it more flexible. Canada Post is losing billions of dollars. Yeah, maybe it's because of you. Maybe because instead of doing media appearances going boo-hoo, you should actually be hitting the table, negotiating with your workers, and making it feasible for everybody. That's what they're trying to do with the United States Postal Service, because the U.S. Postal Service is in the same jam. It's in the same jam, and they want to privatize that. They want to shut down the Postal Service. This is all intended to win for the win of the competition. But if you actually want to keep Canada Post surviving, you have to look at the management. You have to look at the horrific mismanagement that's being done to this organization. Not the workers, not the people that put in the time and effort to deliver your mail, but the people that run the company deliberately to screw itself over. And they don't care because in the end, they still get their bonuses. So I think we should be challenging people like Brian Ettinger and not the people that were on strike. Because he is the guy responsible for all this mayhem. He is the guy at the forefront that could be doing something about this, but he doesn't. And then the government of Canada had to stomp on the demonstration, stomp on the strike, on the workers, and say, enough's enough, get back to work. And nothing's been resolved. So they're doing this to themselves.